Is what's happening with Turkey and their threats against Israel, is this prophetic or just bad? Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg in Jerusalem with a YouTube exclusive for the Rosenberg Report. Now look, this is an interesting topic to me, Turkey, Israel, Bible prophecy, and I want to start off with an analogy. The Middle East is crazy. It's like playing that game on the boardwalk in New Jersey or other places called whack-a-mole. If you played this before, it's basically a machine in front of you and a bunch of holes, and you've got this sort of this rubber mallet, and a mole pops up out of a hole, and you don't know which hole, so you whack that one, and then the moment you whack that one, another one pops up, and so forth. And if you get a lot of them, you get a lot of points, and so forth. That's the game called whack-a-mole. The Middle East is looking a lot like whack-a-mole these days. What do I mean? Well, Iraq popped up under Saddam Hussein, was a threat to the United States, to the Saudis, to Kuwait, to Israel, to everybody. So the United States whacked Iraq. But once Iraq was whacked, Iran popped up. So after years of negotiating, Trump finally gives up on negotiating and whacks Iran. Okay? Now Trump is still whacking, and Israel is still whacking Iran overall. But as Iran has been whacked down, who is popping up? Turkey. And one of the interesting things is that Bible prophecy indicates that Turkey is going to be a key and dangerous player in the last days. The Bible prophecies of Ezekiel 38 and 39, what's known as the War of Gog and Magog, indicate that in the last days, after Israel has been reborn as a country, as Jews are flowing back into the country, as Jews, by God's grace, are making the deserts bloom and rebuilding the ancient ruins, all of which has been happening over the last 100 years or so. As all that happens and Israel gets more quiet and more secure, what's going to happen? Russia is going to form an alliance with Iran and Turkey and a group of other countries and surround and attack Israel just when the people of Israel are feeling like they're living securely, finally, in the land. Now, I don't think any Israeli would tell you that right now that we feel like we're living securely. But what's been happening since October 7th? The United States and Israel, but mostly Israel, has been attacking and winning against every enemy that we have. Every enemy that's literally and physically, kinetically attacking us, we've been fighting back, and Hamas has been nearly decimated. It's not over, okay, but Israel now controls 70% of Gaza, and the Hamas fighters are pretty much in the tunnels. And have they disarmed yet? No. Is Trump putting a lot of pressure? Is the Board of Peace putting a lot of pressure on them? Yes, I would say more could happen, but right now Hamas can't do to Israel what they did on October 7th, 3 years ago, not at all. Hezbollah has been attacked and been badly degraded. I would say they're not quite decimated, but their leaders are dead. The Hezbollah leaders are dead, just like Hamas leaders are dead. Much of the military force of Hezbollah in Lebanon has been crushed, has been decimated. The missile force, mostly, of Hezbollah has been destroyed. And the people of Lebanon are rising up. The government, the president of Lebanon, Joseph Aoun, is saying, we want Iran and Hezbollah, all their influence, out of our country. We want to make peace with Israel, and the obstacle is Iran and Hezbollah. And so far, Israel and Lebanon have had 5 rounds of peace talks, and as I've spoken to senior Israeli and senior American officials, they're encouraged by how much we're moving towards an actual Abraham Accords type peace deal between Lebanon and Israel. Meanwhile, of course, Iran most of its military has been destroyed. The Air Force is destroyed, Navy is destroyed, most of the nuclear program is destroyed, most of the missile program is destroyed. And rather than sign some crazy, way too generous deal with Iran, President Trump is fighting against Iran again. Overall, these are good things. Meanwhile, Israel has been systematically arresting or killing, if necessary, terrorists in Judea and Samaria, what the world calls the West Bank, and so forth. So we're watching Israel systematically, with American help in some cases, and certainly American green light in all cases, systematically dismantle, destroy, degrade Israel's immediate neighbors and enemies, rather. Okay. Now, this is consistent with the prophecy that says eventually we're going to be living securely in this region. We're going to feel secure. It won't mean that there aren't enemies. It will mean that we feel secure for the foreseeable future. I think we're moving towards that. I think before October 7th, we felt secure, but we weren't. Now, almost 3 years after October 7th, I think we've gone a long way. We're not feeling secure, but I think we actually are more secure than we were. So where does that leave us? Iran is a smoldering wreckage. It's not completely neutralized yet, and we need to pray that President Trump will finish the job there. But as Iran has been mostly destroyed, its offensive military capabilities, what's happening? You're watching Turkey begin to emerge as the next serious threat to Israel. Why do I say that? Well, look, Turkish President Erdogan and his foreign minister and his senior leadership are breathing horrific threats against Israel, against the Jewish state. Over the last few years, Turkish President Recep Erdogan and his senior team have threatened to invade Israel, to send the Turkish military to protect the Palestinians of Gaza from, in their words, genocide. It's not genocide, but that's what they're saying. Turkey is going to invade Israel, protect the Palestinians, and take over Jerusalem and take over the Temple Mount. That's what the Turkish leadership has been saying. The Turkish leadership has been calling Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, a Nazi, a Hitler-like fascist that's willfully, eagerly, passionately, happily committing genocide against the Palestinians. So the language that's coming out of Ankara, the capital, the modern capital of Turkey, is not good. It sounds a lot like Iranian rhetoric, right? It sounds like Al-Qaeda rhetoric. It sounds like ISIS rhetoric, because Recep Erdogan, the Turkish president, sees himself as the new sultan, right? Remember that Turkey was the center, the power of the Ottoman Empire that for like 9 centuries controlled the entire Middle East as a caliphate, as an Islamic kingdom that was impenetrable by East or West, okay? Christendom, certainly Judaism, had no way to penetrate, much less destroy, until World War I, when the Ottoman Empire fell, and Kemal Ataturk, the father of the new Turkish nation, created a moderate, peaceful, pro-Western, pro-American country that even made peace with Israel after Israel was reborn as a country in 1948. Really interesting. But Recep Erdogan is himself a radical Islamist. He's taking Turkey in the wrong direction. He wants to be the new leader of radical Islamism, Sunni radical Islamism. He sees in Iran radical or even apocalyptic Shia Islamism as being destroyed, being weakened, being emasculated, and he believes, Erdogan believes, that he is positioned to be the new sultan, to be the new fire-breathing radical Islamist of the Sunni world. And remember, 80% of Islam is Sunni. Now, I'm not saying that 80% of Islam is radical. I'm just saying that 80% of Islam is Sunni, 20% is Shia, roughly. And Recep Erdogan sees himself as the leader, the new emerging leader of Sunni radical Islamism. The home of the Muslim Brotherhood, home of Hamas, home of Al-Qaeda, home of ISIS. Okay? Now, Erdogan is technically, officially, a NATO member. He's not acting like a NATO ally, is he? I mean, when he's threatening to attack and invade and conquer Israel and conquer Jerusalem, this sounds like a sultan from the Ottoman Empire, not from a NATO ally, not from an American ally, not from a friend of peace and security. So these changing geopolitical developments, the changing view of the leadership in Turkey is noteworthy. You need to pay attention to this because what we're watching is Iraq is a smoldering wreckage, not a threat right now. In Bible prophecy, in the book of Revelation, Iraq, Babylonia, rises as the number one worst enemy of Israel, of Jerusalem, of Christians, of Jews, of peace in the entire world. But we're not there yet. Iraq right now is a mess. Iran has been the main threat to Christendom in the Middle East, to Judaism in the Middle East, to Israel and to American interests and even Arab Sunni interests for the last 47 years. But they are a mess right now. It's not over. But we're heading towards the fat lady singing. We're heading towards a point where Iran will be a mess, but not a threat. Not a threat to America, not a threat to Israel, not a threat to the Sunni Arab world. So who does that leave? It leaves Turkey. Not Arab. Turkish is not the Arab race. It's not an Arab. They're not Arab speakers. But Recep Erdogan is a radical Islamist. So when you match the fact that Turkey under Erdogan does not feel like it has any competition, the fact that Turkey is a large country, it's a civilization, that Turkey has the largest military in all of Europe. Turkey is the second largest army in all of NATO, second only to the United States, much larger than any military in NATO in Europe. Now, Ukraine has a pretty big and robust and effective military fighting Russia right now. But Ukraine is not in NATO, okay? So when you look at the fact that Turkey is so large, when you look at the fact that Erdogan is so wicked and is breathing fire, making these threats, he and his team, against Israel, against Jerusalem, and they have this huge military, and that this is all consistent with Bible prophecy, that's of a concern. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not sure we're at a moment like where Gog and Magog is going to play out, okay? I believe we have to get to a place, well, there's two scenarios. Scenario one is that all of this is a mess, but pretty soon Russia, Iran, Turkey, and other countries will form an alliance and they will make a move against Israel. If we're that close, then we'll see more events in the coming months and years that will lead us more quickly than most people think to Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38 and 39. I think it's more likely, but I can't be definitive about it, I think it's more likely that Israel a year from now emerges as safe, as secure, as increasingly peaceful, as increasingly prosperous. I can picture by the end of the Trump administration, 2.5 years from now, I could picture Iran being the dominant military force in the Middle East, Iran neutralized, Hezbollah neutralized, Hamas neutralized, the Houthis neutralized, Al-Qaeda and ISIS not real threats, not major threats, not existential threats. I can picture the Saudis making peace with Israel. I can picture Lebanon making peace with Israel and other countries as well. I could see that happening over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And we may have a season where Israelis feel like we're living securely in the land. I can also picture the situation in Ukraine coming to an end, a negotiated settlement. Russia backs up. Russia begins to retool, lick its wounds, and prepare for another fight. That Iran is quiet and not a threat, but starts to lick its wounds, starts to regather quietly, preparing for a future fight. And the biggest military in Europe, Turkey, I can see it moving towards Russia, towards Iran, building an alliance quietly, steadily. I'm not convinced that we're there yet. I can't rule it out. But these are the trend lines that I'm watching. And I think you need to be watching them too. I think that Turkey does play a role in Bible prophecy. It's the nation historically, in ancient times, known as Gomer. Go read Ezekiel 38, and you're going to see that Gomer is one of those countries that forms an alliance with Gog and Magog, Russia, and with Persia, the ancient name for the country we know today is Iran. I think Recep Erdogan in Turkey is a major threat. Not an immediate threat, I don't think. I hope not. But I think he's an emerging threat. And I think Erdogan is super happy that Iraq is messy and quiet, that Iran is messy and getting quieter. Iran is humbled. Right now, Recep Erdogan has room to maneuver as a new radical Islamist threat to Israel and to the safety and security of Israel. Where does that go? Let's keep an eye on it. From Jerusalem, this is Joel Rosenberg with a YouTube exclusive for the Rosenberg Report.